Islam Morris. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth.
Truth.
Peace.
Peace.
Freedom.
Freedom.
And justice.
And justice.
Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide.
My guide.
And my salvation.
And my salvation.
By night.
By night.
And by day.
And by day.
Through a holy prophet.
Through a holy prophet.
Noble Juali.
Noble Juali.
Islam.
Islam.
Islam. Prophet warns all Muslims governor in order to read proclamation at each meeting. I hereby inform all members that they must end all radical agitating speeches while at home, while at work, in their homes, or on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings toward the temple or the prophet or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet Noble Juali. And if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet, therefore, is sending out a divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Noble Juali. Islam. To be proclaimed at every meeting. Islam. I am glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There is a host of jealousy about me and the movement now by the same people of our side of the nation that claim that I was only a joke and unreal. But now, since they have found out from the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they are working every scheme that they can to disqualify me so they may take charge of the situation. I have notified all these things to you long ago in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement and uplifting funds. The ones that paid their divine respect to me and the movement will be remembered. That is why I am calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance and I need it badly. Never before have I needed finance so badly as I do at present, so I can shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without I, the prophet, being head. It has been proven by my works, which I have performed in the past few years. Prophet Noble Juali. Islam. To the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Islam. This is the instruction from your prophet Noble Juali. Be faithful unto your forefathers' divine and national creed, that you would be blessed for your good deeds that you sow in the flesh. Allah is the one that judges the world, and his judgment is now on, but the weak can comprehend it not. The end of time is drawing near, so says Allah to his divine prophet, I, Noble Juali. And that's why many hearts have been turned to stone. Many have eyes to see, but cannot see, ears to hear, but cannot hear, lest they would be confounded of their sins. These are trying hours now, dear Moors, and every evil spirit is moving, and they are trying every weak mind to overthrow and drag out the true foundation that has been laid, and to cause confusion in the minds of the ones that do believe. But if you have the true love of Allah and the spirit of your forefathers, you fear not what you hear or see, but would sacrifice the utmost of your very life to protect your movement and your prophet. Watch your enemies, dear Moors. Your enemies are the ones that speak against your prophet and ridicule him to the very lowest, and the ones that speak against your divine and national principles. Act accordingly, and Allah would bless you for your good work. Peace, your divine prophet, Noble Juali. Islam. So the only announcement right now, we got barbecue book, we got our spot book. So we're looking at July 9th at E.T. Seaton Park, Overly and Thorncliffe. And it's going to be at lot number 4, the canopy number 4 or whatever. So, and that's 12 o'clock, 12 to 5, and as usual, catering by 5 principals, catering. So bring your bellies, because it's gonna be off as usual. Yeah. We're still we gotta talk with Brother Negum and those Moors near the reserve to go set up our little trip out there to go see them, but we're still looking at the same time, probably August. So and then we're gonna just convey out there. Right. And also probably the next, if considering weather, but it looks like it's probably picking up a little bit in June. Weather's supposed to be all right, so we might start the In the Park series probably sometime June. There was an article, not article, there was a speech, a Lincoln speech, talking about the perpetuation of our political institutions. And this came about from doing some research on Maxims, and the speech was listed in this article I was reading, talking about how the overthrow of de jure law and this is like 1838 or something like that. The overthrow of de jure law and certain things missing relative to, free people and people being put in slavery, and it not only being the Negroes, they were lynching anybody who was trying to help Negroes and all this stuff. So there were some things in there on January 27, 1838, that was relative to right now. I was also, when I was reading this, the thing that came to mind was the stuff with Moorish militia right now, and how so many people aren't looking at the corruption of the alleged so-called government, but they're looking at these Moors that they did something wrong or whatever, and just that the level of corruption has been going on, and people been known that we've even, during the time that this stuff's supposed to be republic and, looking out for the rights of man and whatever like that. So this was a speech that he did at this place called Young Men's Lyceum in Springfield, Illinois. And you could just do the research on the Lyceum. It's just like some Baptist people or whatever, but they had called Lincoln to do the speech. Keep in mind, this is before his presidency and all that. So this was the mindset that he was riding on. So this is January 27th, 1838. As a subject for the remarks of the evening, the perpetuation of our political institutions. In the great journal of things happening under the sun, we, the American people, find our account running under date of the 19th century of the Christian era. We find ourselves in the peaceful possession of the fairest portion of the earth as regards the extent of territory, fertility of soil, and salubrity of climate. We find ourselves under the government of a system of political institutions conducing more essentially to the ends of civil and religious liberty than any of which the history of former times tells us. We We, when mounting the stage of existence, found ourselves the legal inheritors of these fundamental blessings. We toiled not in the acquirement or establishment of them. They are a legacy bequeathed to us by a once hardy, brave, and patriotic, but now lamented and departed race of ancestors. Theirs was the task, and nobly they performed it, to possess themselves and through themselves us of this goodly land, and to uprear upon its hills and its valleys a political edifice of liberty and equal rights. 'Tis ours only to transmit these, the former unprofaned by the foot of an invader, the latter undecayed by the lapse of time, and untorn by usurpation to the latest generation that fate shall permit the world to know. This task of gratitude to our fathers, justice to ourselves, duty to posterity, and love for our species in general, all imperatively require us faithfully to perform. How then shall we perform it? At what point shall we expect the approach of danger? By what means shall we fortify against it? Shall we expect some transatlantic military giant to step the ocean and rush us at a blow? Never. All the armies of Europe, Asia, and Africa combined, with all the treasure of earth, our own expected, in their military chests, with a Bonaparte for a commander, could not force and take a drink of the Ohio, or make a track on the Blue Ridge in a trial of 1,000 years. At what point, then, is the approach of danger to be expected? I answer, if it ever reach us, it must spring up among us. It cannot come from abroad. If destruction be our lot, we must ourselves be its author and finisher. As a nation of free men, we must live through all time or die by suicide. I hope I am over weary, but if I am not, there is even now something of ill omen amongst us. I mean the increasing disregard for the law which pervades the country, the growing disposition to substitute the wild and furious passions in lieu of the sober judgment of courts, and the worse than savage mobs for the executive ministers of justice. This disposition is awfully fearful in any community, and that it now exists in ours, though grating to our feeling to admit, it would be a violation of truth and an insult to our intelligence to deny. Accounts of outrages committed by mobs form the everyday news of the times. They have pervaded the country from New England to Louisiana. They are neither peculiar to the external snows of the former, nor the burning suns of the latter. They are not the creature of climate, neither are they confined to the slaveholding or the non-slaveholding states. Alike, they spring up among the pleasure-hunting masters of Southern slaves and order-loving citizens of the land of steady habits. Whatever then their cause may be, it is common to the whole country. And we're relating this to a lot of this to the idea of knowing what's going on with the climate of everything happening, that the time is now for us to fend for ourselves and stop relying on others to hopefully do something, or their moral obligation to do something for the Moors, or whatever the case is. That if the Moors want it, Moors better be active in pursuing whatever it is that we're looking at. I don't know if you saw the stuff that came out with the shooting and the highwaymen saying they weren't going in the building and all that stuff. They don't want to get shot and all this. Right? Yeah, right. Don't let the parents in there. They're not let the parents in. They're not going in. And then now people get murdered, children get murdered, and it's just part of what it is.
They want harsher gun control here too. In Mexico, all the teachers were strapped.
Yeah.
So I didn't,
Yeah.
The teachers in that school had their arms.
It wouldn't be Asian. Yeah, wouldn't be Asian.
There didn't come.
Yeah, yeah. And again, you know, the whole thing with them being strapped and it being acceptable. You know what I mean? Ain't nobody complaining about gun laws and all that stuff. Ain't nobody have no arms just going around shooting people just because they got arms. That's not civilized. You know what I mean? Civilized society, you're gonna take control of your stuff. You know what I mean? You're not gonna sit back and let somebody do something for you when you know you could do it for yourself. Ain't no different than somebody breaking the house and then you're calling them people waiting for them to come. By the time they get there, you're dead already. You know what I mean? And the thing of the public with regard to the Texas thing, the thing of the public really not going in there and go getting their children. Like push these people aside and go get their children. Like there's gunman in there, you guys standing out here smoking or whatever, chilling, standing around, huddling, talking, while people are they're hearing shots outside and all that.
So if that was me, I would have told opposite. Give me your body armor. Give me your stuff.
Give me your stuff. Yeah. Just give me your stuff. Let me go in there and deal with this thing. Peace more. You know? Right? Because the audacity, you know, of them to take that position, you know what I mean? To say, yo, we're not going inside. We're not going inside. There's guns in there or whatever like that. No, we're not going in there. You know? Then the other side of it, where we always talk about is that, you know, the people are wards. They think they got rights. They think they're protected. They think that these people are out for their best interests when they're not. Look at that situation. You know what I mean? These people let people's children get murdered. That's public school. It's not some private institution or whatever. That's public school. Government funded. Right? And they allowed that to happen. You know? Right? Going back to this thing. The savage mobs for the executive ministers of justice. You know, they just sat there and holding people back from being able to go save their children. If they want to get shot up, go let them get shot up. But why are you stopping them from going and getting their children or whatever? Right? It would be tedious as well as useless to recount the horrors of all of them. Those happening in the state of Mississippi and at St. Louis are perhaps the most dangerous in example and revolting to humanity. In the Mississippi case, they first commenced by hanging the regular gamblers, a set of men certainly not following for a livelihood a very useful or very honest occupation, but one which, so far from being forbidden by the laws, was actually licensed by an act of the legislature, passed but a single year before. Next, Negroes suspected of conspiring to raise an insurrection were caught up and hanged in all parts of the state. Then white men, supposed to be leagued with the Negroes, and finally strangers from neighboring states going thither on business, were in many instances subjected to the same fate. Thus went on the process of hanging from gamblers to Negroes, from Negroes to white citizens, and from those strangers, till dead men were seen literally dangling from the boughs of trees upon every roadside, and in numbers almost sufficient to rival the native Spanish moss of the country as a drapery of the forest. Turn then to that horror-striking scene at St. Louis. A single victim was only sacrificed there. His story is very short and is perhaps the most highly tragic of anything of its length that has ever been witnessed in real life. A mulatto man by the name of McIntosh was seized in the street, dragged to the suburbs of the city, chained to a tree, and actually burned to death, and all within a single hour from the time he had been a free man, attending to his own business and at peace with the world. Right? Going back to the Moorish militia thing, right? Free men attending to their business, they ain't bothering nobody, ain't nothing going on, right? And now you look at Brother Jamil, they just put in psychiatric ward, just kidnapped him. Well, not just kidnap him, but just put him in a ward because of him standing up for rights or whatever. What they're doing to Brother Jamal right now, what they're doing to Brother Quinn right now, but then everybody else is out and all of them were together. You know what I mean? So you know that this has to do with them taking the position of making sure that individuals who were, you know, the forefront of it being used as the example, right? And which again shows the disregard for law, the disregard for human rights, the disregard for international law, because for it to be going on still with these three individuals only, when all these other people are already home, just shows that it's corruption going on. Right? Such are the effects of mob law, and such are the scenes becoming more and more frequent in this land, so lately framed for love of law and order, and the stories of which have even now grown too familiar to attract anything more than an idle remark. Right, going back to the same thing. Right, it's been the cognitive dissonance and the Stockholm syndrome is so thick that people aren't even remarking on it unless they're talking about these more did something wrong and they're talking crazy. Other than those people, ain't nobody talking about what's going on. Right?
Mob rule, right?
Yeah.
Democracy right there.
Yeah. Right. Such are the effects of mob rule. But you are perhaps ready to ask, what has this to do with the perpetuation of our political institutions? I answer, it has much to do with it. Its direct consequences are, comparatively speaking, but a small evil, and much of its danger consists in the proneness of our minds to regard its direct as its only consequences. Abstractly considered, the hanging of the gamblers at Vicksburg was of but little consequence. They constitute a portion of population that is worse than useless in any community, and their death, if no pernicious example be set by it, is never matter of reasonable regret with anyone. If they were annually swept from the stage of existence by the plague or smallpox, honest men would perhaps be much profited by the operation. Similar too is the correct reasoning in regard to the burning of the Negro at St. Louis. He had forfeited his life by the perpetration of an outrageous murder upon one of the most worthy and respectable citizens of the city. And had he not died as he did, he must have died by the sentence of the law in a very short time afterwards. As to him alone, it was as well the way it was as it could otherwise have been. But the example in either case was fearful. When men take it in their heads today to hang gamblers or burn murderers, they should recollect that in the confusion usually attending much transactions, they will be likely to hang or burn someone who is neither a gambler nor a murderer as one who is. and that acting upon the example they set, the mob of tomorrow may and probably will hang or burn some of them by the very same mistake. And not only so, the innocent who have ever set their faces against violations of law in the very shape alike with the guilty, fall victim to the ravages of mob law. And thus it goes on, step by step, till the walls erected for the defense of the persons and property of individuals are trodden down and disregarded. But all this even is not the full extent of the evil. By such examples, by instances of the perpetrators of such acts going unpunished, the lawless in spirit are encouraged to become lawless in practice, and having been used to no restraint but dread of punishment, they thus become absolutely unrestrained. Having ever regarded government as their deadliest bane, they make a jubilee of the suspension of its operations, and pray for nothing so much as its total annihilation. Going back to the same thing when these people prorogue parliament, when they whatever like that, Moore's getting excited, like, yes, government shut down or whatever. Let's get them out of here. It's over. I just seen them. Somebody had a video with they chased fucking Jagmeet Singh out of Brampton the other day.
His own people, eh?
Yo, his own people, right? And look where they went with it against their own. Yeah, and look at us. You know what I mean? We're going and marching. We're going and marching with what a man named Al Sharpton and Bunch and all these people who they don't care about us. Our best interest is not even in their sight.
Right.
They're all about violating or whatever. Right? Please. I pray for nothing so much as its total annihilation. While on the other hand, good men who love tranquility, who desire to abide by the laws and enjoy their benefits, who would gladly spill their blood in the defense of their country, seeing their property destroyed, their families insulted, and their lives endangered, their persons injured, and seeing nothing in prospect that forebodes a change for the better, become tired of and disgusted with a government that offers them no protection, and are not much adverse to a change in which they imagine they have something to lose. Thus then, by the operation of this mobcratic spirit, which all must admit is now abroad in the land, the strongest bulwark of any government, and particularly of those constituting like ours, may effectually be broken down and destroyed. I mean the attachment of the people. Wherever this effect shall be produced among us, whenever the vicious portion of population shall be permitted to gather in bands of hundreds and thousands, and burn churches, ravage and rob provision stores, throw printing presses into rivers, shoot editors, and hang and burn obnoxious persons at pleasure and with impunity, depend on it, this government cannot last. By such things, the feelings of the best citizens will become more or less alienated from it, and thus it will be left without friends, or with too few, and those few too weak to make their friendship effectual. At such a time, and under such circumstances, men of sufficient talent and ambition will not be wanting to seize the opportunity, strike the blow, and overturn their fabric, which for the last half century has been the fondest hope of the lovers of freedom throughout the world. Right, so this is 1830, and he's saying half century before that, people been fighting because they realize that something's going on. Right, the corruption is getting crazy. Right, and then we fast forward from then to now, and we see that it's the same stuff going on. Right, government being corrupt, all the political institutions or all the educational institutions taking a position of dumb down people, not teach them what they're supposed to teach them. All the religious institutions playing dogma and everything else that has nothing to do with the spiritualities of life or whatever, right? Financial institutions, nothing backed by anything of substance. Everything is dealing with credit, debit, things that have no value, right? It's all part of the corruption that everybody's facing throughout the world, right? The lovers of freedom throughout the world are their hope is slipping, because you could tell that when you see good people stop fighting. When you see sincere people taking a step back and then saying, well, there ain't no sense being sincere anymore. No sense being constitutional if these people are going to be violating it. There's no sense being righteous if the people are going to allow the unrighteous to be ruling over them, i.e., Texas highwaymen standing around, people's children getting murdered, and then people are just standing there before they beat these people's ass for just standing there, right? And that's their finance that's paying them. Their finance paying them, and they're just going to sit there and argue, just like the Negroes, right? Which again goes to show you the wardship is really a mentality. The wardship is something that people have been conditioned into accepting as, well, it's all right to do this. It's all right to sit back and wait and see what happens or whatever. People been waiting 60 years. People died waiting for certain stuff. Still never got anything, and then still sitting there waiting. You didn't realize that something has to be done, right? I know the American people are much attached to their government. I know they would suffer much for its sake. I know they would endure evils long and patiently before they would ever think of exchanging it for another. Yet, notwithstanding all of this, if the laws be continually despised and disregarded, if their rights to be secure in their persons and property are held by no better tenure than the caprice of a mob, the alienation of their affections from the government is the natural consequence. And to that, sooner or later, it must come. Right? That's 1800s. Right? Before he was president, talking crazy to them like, hey, if you think you got something now, you have nothing now. 1800s. So, like what's going on, right? And again, you could see that. And then when you check all the other speeches that he was talking about before he got in office, you could see how he got in office. But then you also see that he had to be a plant or something like that by that time for stuff not to be getting better once they get in the seat. Because you already know that once they get in the seat, just like when these people got in the prophet seat and start saying reincarnated prophet and all that stuff went to hell, right? Like they're in the seat where they can make stuff change, and then stuff's not changing, stuff's remaining the same or getting worse. Here then is one point of which danger may be expected. The question recurs, how shall we fortify against it? The answer is simple. Let every American, every lover of liberty, every well-wisher to his posterity swear by the blood of the revolution never to violate in the least particular the laws of the country, and never to tolerate their violation by others. Right? Let every American, he left off citizen in that part. Let every American, every lover of liberty, every well-wisher to his posterity swear by the blood of the revolution never to violate in the least particular the laws of the country, and never to tolerate their violation by others. Is people who's supposed to serve and protect standing around not protecting, isn't that a violation of stuff? As the patriots of 76 did to support the Declaration of Independence, so to the support of the Constitution and laws, let every American pledge his life, his property, and his sacred honor. Let every man remember that to violate the law is to trample on the blood of his father and to tear the character of his own and his children's liberty. Let reverence of the laws be breathed by every American mother to the lip-sing babe that prattles in her lap. Let it be taught in schools, in seminaries, in colleges. Let it be written in primers, spelling books, and in almanacs. Let it be preached from the pulpit, proclaimed in legislative halls, and enforced in courts of justice. And in short, let it become the political religion of the nation. And let the old and the young, the rich and the poor, the grave and the gay, of all sexes and tongues and colors and conditions, sacrifice unceasingly upon its altars. While ever a state of feeling such as this shall universally or even very generally prevail throughout the nation, vain will be every effort and fruitless every attempt to subvert our national freedom. When I so pressingly urge a strict observance of all the laws, let me not be understood as saying there are no bad laws, nor that grievances may not arise, for the redress of which no legal provisions have been made. I mean to say no such thing, but I do mean to say that although bad laws, if they exist, should be repealed as soon as possible, still while they continue in force for the sake of example, they should be religiously observed. So also in unprovided cases, if such arise, let proper legal provisions be made for them with at least possible delay. But till then, let them, if not too intolerable, be borne with. There is no grievance that is a fit object of redress by mob law in any case that arises, as for instance, the promulgation of abolitionism. One of the two provisions is necessarily true. That is, the thing is right within itself and therefore deserves the protection of all the law and all good citizens, or it is wrong and therefore proper to be prohibited by legal enactments, and in neither case is the interposition of mob law either necessary, justifiable, or excusable. But it may be asked, why suppose danger to our political institutions? Have we not preserved them for more than 50 years? And why may we not for 50 times as long? We hope there is no sufficient reason. We hope all dangers may be overcome, but to conclude that no danger may ever arise, would itself be extremely dangerous. There are now and will hereafter be many causes dangerous to the tendency which have not existed heretofore, and which are not too significant to merit attention, that our government should be maintained in its original form, its establishment until now. It is not much to be wondered at all. It had many props to support it through the period, which are now decayed and crumbled away. Through that period, it was felt by all. To the undecided experiment, now it is understood to be a successful one. Then all that sought celebrity and fame and distinction expected to find them in the success of the experiment. Their all was staked upon it. Their destiny was inseparably linked with it. Their ambition aspired to display before an admiring world a practical demonstration of the truth of a proposition which had heretofore been considered to best no better than problematic, namely the capability of a people to govern themselves. Right? So at the point of realizing where it's at, which we see where it's at, peace more, which we see where it's at, it's on the people now to govern themselves, because obviously these people who are claiming to be government, whatever like that, they don't care. They're all about their self. They're all about their, their boy getting the kickbacks from the pharmaceutical or whatever. They're all about their boy getting the kickbacks from put a yellow thing on your car and make you go pay. Then if you can't pay, then we're going to take your property. And then even if you do pay, we're still going to hold your property just because we can, and you can't do anything about it, right? If we're going to kidnap you, we're going to hold you just because we can, just because we could change the date from today to next year, and you just have to deal with it because the people have taken no position with regard to all these continual violations that's been going on against the people. It's not like we're in some foreign situation, like we're looking at Ukraine, Russia, or whatever like that. So that'll never happen here or whatever like that. When stuff's been happening here, they're just not bombing you. They're just not running up in your crib and doing whatever. The same stuff that's happening over there and anywhere else is happening here. Government taking advantage of their powers, and then the people allowing them to take advantage of the powers because the people have gone numb to the violation against them. Go ahead, Mark.
I was just going to say COVID.
Yeah,
It's
another one.
just to the Ukraine war.
Yeah.
What you're seeing over there is what has happened to us spiritually.
Yeah.
Here, all those little snapshots of whatever. Our problem is that they've done a very effective job at putting social interest for us to gather to be united on something. I think is where our issue is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know how we overcome that. I was just thinking about this today.
Yeah.
What we need to do, how do we bring people here to this level? But then I also realize that it's also a level of awareness. Which I guess you can't really force on anyone, right?
Yeah, I mean, the most you could do is present what they should be aware to, and then it's on them after that. Nobody
But
does.
it makes it very hard from my perspective to advance as an organization. You know, like if you're Filipino, you don't get an opportunity to not really be Filipino. You know what I mean? They'll murder you if you're out there saying that you're not Filipino and you're a Filipino. Because then in a sense you're a traitor to your own country,
Yeah.
and to your own nation.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've got the blood of a Filipino in you, and yet you're saying you're a white man.
Yeah.
So now we gotta.
Or saying you're a Canadian, or saying you're whatever.
Well, you can say you're Canadian as long as you're a Filipino, behind the scenes.
Yeah.
The Canadian thing is all what people are just talking to this more here. And he was saying his father is in Africa, right? And the father's been chewing cat for 30 years.
You've been what?
Cat. You know the cat thing that the Africans chew? It's this plant.
Yeah.
It's illegal here, but in Africa it's legal. It's called khat.
Mm.
Or cat. I don't think any of you heard of it?
No.
Well,
But I guess it's what
Google the shit. It's
yeah.
fucking, it's a huge thing.
Islam.
Allah.
Peace, Islam, Mark.
Hey, you heard of cat? This is for you know. You heard of cat?
Peace, Mark.
Shit.
What's good?
You heard of cat?
I hate that. What is it?
You heard of cat? Cat? It comes from Africa. They chew it.
Yeah, cut. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it?
It is like a stimulant.
Yeah.
So all over Africa, it's a scourge there. It's legal here. Now they were getting a lot of European people to go over there and bring it back.
Mm.
Well, no, it was illegal. It's illegal. Yeah, I can't remember what the term is, but anyways, they had a lot of European women who go over there, get with some guy, and they would tell her that they would just wanted her to bring back some plants. That's the story.
Mm.
It was just some herbs. When they get here, they find out that it's a Schedule II narcotic,
Yeah.
and these people are now. Some of them also know that it's illegal, and they're still coming through.
Mm.
Because if anyone's ever seen Border Patrol, some people will bring some shit over here.
Yeah.
They'll have a suitcase full of chicken and shit. You know what I mean? Like, I've never seen some of that shit. People just bringing their shit from home. So the father has been chewing cat for 30 years, and they sent him this picture of the father. His face is all swollen, because they've been spraying now the cap. This is their way of sort of
Countering it, yeah.
right? But
That's
of course, you're chewing it.
Yeah.
So where's it gonna?
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So, and they were talking about how he may have to, because this is where you realize that this thing is real. They've all come. They're from Africa, which is supposed to be the foundation of the world. He would have to come to Canada to get medical attention
For this thing from over there, yeah.
from over there.
Yeah.
So hold on, but you're over there. What's wrong with your medical system there? They don't have one. So hold on, isn't this the place where everyone came after being from over there to come here, right? They came here. This was the new uncharted land that now people supposedly are coming to. But that's what I'm saying. The story doesn't make sense, because if this is the uncharted place that's just new, then your ship should be set up.
Yeah.
That's why I see. You ever notice they don't really show you shit about Europe, some stuff, but all the stuff you see is this old crumbling buildings. How come they don't got no new life in there?
Yeah.
How come America's the only place that, you know, like your whole, well, I mean, the Chinese and the Japanese seem to be at that forefront too, but everything in Europe seems to be old and crumbling. Everything here seems to be, you know, big and fresh and new and advanced. Right? So, but the narrative's been switched. That you think that over there was the foundation of things. Well, I guess that would play out in their stuff being old. But to me, it also shows that nothing's evolved for them either as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, nothing has grown from where they started. Right? But what I was getting at was that he came over here for the medical attention, and being continually reminded that the rest of the world, this is the center of the world.
Yeah.
Everything else is like a satellite of that.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Yeah.
We're all migrated from here to other places. So maybe coming back home.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Chickens coming home to roost.
Yeah, coming home, but
Yeah.
they-
Chickens coming home to roost. Yeah.
And there's already-
Yeah. Our go.
I think we started that you were saying, because, you know, it's funny, I walked in and no hands. You see that? You see that guy?
No.
Just came by here, no hands, going about 40, right? And I just think to myself, one little bump, bro. You got no hands on that bike. One little pebble, bro. Just all up and tall and shit. So that whiteboard would be ugly, right?
You said you came in here. You're
No, I was overhearing you talking about the fact that now they know.
Yeah.
Now it's on them, but then.
Oh no! Oh yeah! Just to update you, this is from 1838. This is a Lincoln speech from 1830. That's talking about the stuff that you're saying now they know. This is from 1800s. They've been known. And something's up.
Oh, that speech you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, no, but I'm talking about that analogous to today.
Yeah.
How many people have come through this place that know or should know at this point?
Yeah.
As I said, the classroom's still, the seats are still somewhat, empty.
Yeah.
And I think you and I have been talking about this just from the perspective of, we've been talking about the recruitment drive kind of maybe has to be at least that perspective of this needs to be shared with some other activity, right? Having the doors open to bring people into their nationality to hopefully get a nation seems to be stuck at just getting people to come in, right?
Mm.
Because you'll have 10 people come in here, and 9 times out of 10, none of them will stay. Every couple of rounds, we get someone who stays.
Yeah.
We get someone who stays.
Yeah. One of
30 people come in, one stays.
Yeah.
It's crazy shit.
But then as part of it too is the whole thing with what are people staying for? The ones that are.
That shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be, but that's what we're saying. That.
Hold on, you've just been told that these people have been running game on you. Everything that you know, everything that you thought you knew was up is actually up and even more.
Yeah.
And you're gonna go back and take the license and keep doing your shit. Like really?
Yep, cognitive dissonance is real. Real. Stockholm syndrome is real.
Yeah, yes, because like what you were doing, like how you breaking down stuff and like putting all that info of what those other brothers, those Dorothy Moores are doing. A lot of the brothers, most of the times, they see the Dorothy Moores thing more
Then the cleat, yeah.
the real content.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so now because it's hard to keep up with what those guys are doing that Dorothy stuff is hard to keep up.
Yeah.
So most of these guys say, forget it, man. I know that. They thinking different what this thing is. Like I trying to tell some of the brothers from work, I said, this is not about religion.
Yeah.
But you're born right.
Yeah.
Civics. You gonna understand civics, you gonna know your rights, you gonna stand on your square. But like if you tell a man like when you say stand on your square, man, it was like what you supposed to know? Like what you supposed to know to stand on your square?
Mm.
You see, I'm talking because it happened to me.
Yeah.
I'm speaking from what you supposed to know. Yeah.
But this is what Lincoln was saying too, that idea is supposed to be in all the learning institutions. They're supposed to be talking about it. All the churches supposed to be talking about it. All the government people supposed to be talking about it. All the whoever you name them, if they have a platform to speak, they should be talking about what they should be talking about.
You said 1836 is when you're.
1838 or something. Nothing yet. I'm waiting for them man to come. Nothing's there. everybody pulled out. That's the theme of the day.
Shows you I wasn't on time, right?
Yeah, the juice is not time either.
The alarm goes off. People thinking, how the fuck did Omar bring stuff in here? I go in there, I pull out a juice, and you guys are like, what?
But the General Education Board, that's 1902.
Yeah, somewhere around
so
there.
that's even,
Yeah,
so they're doing that.
pre
before.
that. Yeah.
What number is that?
That's fat boy rule number 1. I'm hungry.
Yeah, and then that was the same thing with regard to the Constitution with Oscar the Priest and him going around and telling everybody that you need to read this document, you need to post this up places. You can't just think that you're protected because you say so. You need to actually be reading, studying, whatever where you're clicking. Gotta know something, But again, the idea of them not being in that mindset of when, like you're saying, all of us here learn from that same experience. Like, well, how am I supposed to stand my skirt or whatever? Then until you stand on it, you don't know what it is. Well, why are you wearing that fez? Until you buy one, put one on, until you wrap a turban or whatever like that, you don't know what a turban and a fez is. You just think that's just some stuff these black guys are doing, for whatever reason. Maybe, some religious thing or whatever the case is,
Yeah. And the thing about it is the Albions respect you more. Oh,
yeah.
They like, they basically salute you, man.
Yeah.
They salute you.
Yeah.
Because like the energy, as you said, the energy is different and it's positive vibes. It's the vibration is.
Yeah. Even yesterday I had this European, same thing. Ran up on me. Hey, are you in the lodge? No, more. More. What do you mean? What's that? Where are you from? From Morocco. Oh, Morocco. You mean no, the Moroccan Empire. Moroccan Empire. Wow. Yo, man said, I need to go check this stuff out because I get what you're saying. I don't know everything, but I get what you're saying. And I need to go check some of this stuff out because what you're telling me right now, I never heard this stuff ever. European. And of course, Asiatics all over there just looking at you, they see you, they're looking over here. They have no questions. They have no questions. Yeah.
I got an experience when I was downtown. I was gonna go pick up some medals, and I would use my nationality card. So I've been going there for like weeks and months, And then one day, like the owner of the store that doesn't chat to nobody, he's just always in the background, just looking at papers. He just looked at me and said like, "Yo, you're interesting. Like, where are you from?" Like, I'm like, "I'm from here." He said, "Where?" Like, "It's Morocco." I said, "Yo, but I noticed your ID. Your ID, you're like, so what? You're like an Indian?" I'm like, we don't like that word. We're not Indian. No.
Yeah.
I'm like, "But we are indigenous, yes." He's like, "So you don't have the native card?" Yeah. So immediately he went to the. So if you want to leave the country, what you're gonna have to use their passport, right? I'm like, if you don't want to fight, yeah, you have to use it. You know, you don't want to fight.
Yeah.
Why not? He's just like, all right. So let me see your card. 'Cause I see it on paper, but I just want to see it. So he looked at it, and the biggest thing he looked at, like he couldn't take his eyes off of it, was race, human. He was just like,
What was his nationality?
yo, I didn't know because I didn't even ask, but they look like they're like Syrian or something like that.
Mm.
So I remember when they first came over here, I used to work with them when they first came over here. So I think I don't know, but I think
Probably tour pictures.
right there, around them areas.
Yeah.
But they were so big on that.
Was the ancient American map of the Bible or whatever? It says that Assyria is over here where we are right now in Canaanland. And so I was building a Randy the other day, and I was like, one of the Assyrian kings killed a narwhal. Narwhal is only found in Russia, Greenland, Canada, and Siberia.
Mm.
So how are you killing narwhal over there? You know what I'm saying? But it has to be over here, so you got to do that here. So, this is because you sent me the you're reading the book on Assyria too.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Yeah.
The Assyrian war. See, look at that. Like, I'm gonna walk on my nationality card.
Yo, he was so funny. He was just like, yo, human. And he just looked at me. He looked at the card, looked at me. He's just like, he had a little smile.
Yeah.
As if he knew, like, you're not one of them black guys.
Yeah.
You're not one of them.
Different,
It's you.
yeah.
What?
You're
You guys
different.
don't talk like this. You guys talk about colors and everybody's white, yellow, and all this stuff.
Yeah.
You guys don't talk like this. But it was a big thing because he was the guy that he doesn't chat to nobody. Like, he was the guy, like, he's that one guy, and he has his face, like, I don't know if it's probably him or he has like some strong genes, or it was just his face is like some big portrait, and it was like some, I don't know what it was, like some type of thing. I don't know if it was like a bowl cut or what, but it was just a big image of him. And you could tell he was a top guy, and he just said, "Nah, I need to talk to you. You're different.
Thumbs up.
You're different." Yeah,
You
you're
have a
different.
fortune in this place, and you just you know something. You stop in the world. You got to turn hold on, this is different identification card.
Yeah.
Human.
It was honored. I mean, he was trying to, in a sense, he was trying to get me to get at the natives.
Yeah.
He was like, "So what about them that they use their Indian card or whatever?" I'm like, that's their choice.
That's
their choice.
Free will.
They wanna
Free
do.
will, yeah.
I said, "Yo, we have
They got free will.
You don't have to do that." He didn't argue when I said self-identify. He was like, yeah, that makes sense." I'm like, "Yeah, we're one nation. We don't need Canada stuff."
Yeah. Especially telling us that we're whatever. Yeah.
Native is a one born. He said the native, right? So
Mhm.
I told him native is someone born in bondage.
Yeah, trust me.
With slaves.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
or the one where they put us as non-status.
Yo, I told him that part. No,
Non-status.
I did tell him that part. I'm like, "Yo, you will be what you would call non-status." He's just like, "Oh, so you guys don't deal with it." That's when he went to the card thing. You guys don't deal with the card and all that stuff.
Yeah.
He was into that. He was very into that.
Islam.
See the hard headdress.
Yeah.
Yeah, the uniform.
Yeah. It makes a big difference. Makes a big difference.
Prophet said that to be well identified. No?
Yeah, be yourself.
Be yourself.
Stop being some other stuff. Their ambition aspired to display before an admiring world a practical demonstration of the truth of a proposition which had hitherto been considered at best no better than problematic, namely the capability of a people to govern themselves. If they succeeded, they would be immortalized. Their names were to be transferred to counties and cities and rivers and mountains, and to be revered and sung and toasted through time. If they failed, they would be called knaves and fools and fanatics for a fleeting hour, then to sink and be forgotten. They succeeded. The experiment is successful, and thousands have won their deathless names in making it so. But the game is caught, and I believe it is true that with a catching and the pursuit and the pleasures of the chase, this field of glory is harvested, and the crop is already appropriated. But new reapers will arise, and they too will seek a field. It is to deny what the history of the world tells us is true, to suppose that men of ambition and talents will not continue to spring up among us. And when they do, they will as naturally seek the gratification of their ruling passion, as others have so done before them. The question then is, can that gratification be found in supporting and maintaining an edifice that has been erected by others?
Back by rule number 1, benevolent works. Give to the hungry, they will receive you with love.
We can't stand you.
You have cups.
Yeah, there's some. Yeah, I think there's some of the
Cups with water, juice.
Yeah. And when they do, they will as naturally seek the gratification of their ruling passion as others have so done before them. The question then is, can the gratification be found in supporting and maintaining an edifice that has been erected by others? Most certainly it cannot. Many great and good men, sufficiently qualified for any task they should undertake, may never be found, whose ambition would aspire to nothing beyond a seat in Congress, a gubernatorial or a presidential chair. But such belong not to the family of the lion or the tribe of the eagle. What think you these places would satisfy an Alexander, a Caesar, or Napoleon? Never. Towering genius disdains a beaten path. It takes regions hitherto unexplored. It sees no distinction in adding story to story upon the monuments of fame, erected to the memory of others. It denies that it is glory enough to serve under any chief. It scorns to tread in the footsteps of any predecessor, however illustrious. It thirsts and burns for distinction, and if possible, it will have it, whether at the expense of the emancipating slaves or enslaving freemen. It is unreasonable then to expect that some men possessed of the loftiest genius, coupled with ambition sufficient to push it to its utmost stretch, will at some time spring upon us. And when such a one does, it will require that people be united with each other, attached to the government and laws, and generally intelligent to successfully frustrate his designs. Distinction will be his paramount object, and although he would as willingly, perhaps more so, acquire it by doing good as harm, yet that opportunity being past and nothing left be done in the way of building up, he would set boldly to the task of pulling down. Here then is a probable case, highly dangerous, and such one that could have well existed heretofore. Another reason which once was, but which to the extent is now and no more, has done much in maintaining our institutions thus far. I mean the powerful influence which the interesting scenes of the revolution had upon the passions of the people as distinguished from their judgment. But this influence, the jealousy, the envy, the avarice, incident to our nature, and so common to the state of peace and prosperity and conscious strength, were, for the time, in a great measure, smothered and rendered inactive, while the deep-rooted principles of hate and the powerful motive of revenge, instead of being turned against each other, were directed exclusively against the British nation. And thus, from the force of circumstances, the basis principles of our nature we either made to lie dormant or become an active agent in the advancement of the noblest cause, that of establishing and maintaining civil and righteous liberty. But this state of fleeing must fade, is fading, and has faded with the circumstances that produced it. I do not mean to say that the scenes of the revolution are now or will ever be entirely forgotten, but that, like everything else, they must fade upon the memory of the world and grow more and more dim by the lapse of time. In history, we hope they will be read of and recounted so long as the Bible shall be read. And even granting that they will, their influence cannot be heretofore has been. Even then, they cannot be so universally known nor so vividly felt as they were by the generation just gone to rest. At the close of that struggle, nearly every adult male had been a participator in some of its scenes. The consequence was that of these scenes, in the form of a husband, a father, a son, or a brother, a living history was to be found in every family, a history bearing the undubitable testimonies of its own authenticity, in the limbs mangled, in the scars of wounds received, in the midst of every scene of the very scenes related, a history too that could be read and understood alike by all, the wise and the ignorant, the learned and the unlearned. But those histories are gone. They can be read no more forever. They were a fortress of strength, but what invading foeman could never do, the silent artillery of time has done. The leveling of its walls, they are gone. They were a forest of giant oaks, but the all resistless hurricane has swept over them and left only there a lonely trunk, despoiled of its verdure, shorn of its foliage, unshading and unshaded, to murmur in a few more gentle breezes and to combat with its mutilated limbs a few more rudder storms, then sink to be no more. They were pillars of the temple of liberty, and now they have crumbled away. That temple must fall unless we, their descendants, supply their places with other pillars, hewn from the solid quarry of somber reason. Passion has helped us, but can do so no more. It will be in future, it will in future be our enemy. Reason, cold, calculating, unpassioned reason, must furnish all the materials of our future support and defense. Let those materials be molded into general intelligence, sound morality, and in particular, a reverence for the Constitution and laws, and that we improved to the last, that we remain free to the last, that we revered his name to the last, that during his long sleep we permitted no hostile foot to pass over or desecrate his resting place, shall be that which learned the last trump shall awaken our Washington. Upon these let the proud fabric of freedom rest as the rock of its basis, and as truly has been said for the only greater institution, the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Addressed by Abraham Lincoln before the Young Men's Lyceum of Springfield, Illinois, as it appeared in the Sagamo Journal, February 3rd, 1838. From the collected works of Abraham Lincoln, 8 volumes.
He was a Moor, right?
Melungeon half-breed.
Huh?
Melungeon half-breed, mixed, whatever you wanna call it. He had the one drop of nigger blood or whatever.
That's what I'm saying.
Look what the drop could do. Yeah. One drop. One drop.
He just encapsulated our whole thing.
Yeah. And again, that's 1838. All right. All right, so from there we just go to Maxims of Law. And the idea again that these truths are the basis of the foundation of government, society, and all that. And like you're saying, they've been eroded away. All those pillars have been brought down, and then it's now time for us to set up new pillars so that we can build something. Because if we're relying on, just like we were saying, if we're relying on some tore down, broken down stuff, it's probably not going to last too long, right? So with regard to the maxims, we have Maxims of Law, Black's Law Dictionary. An established principle of proposition, a principle of law universally admitted as being a correct statement of the law or as agreeable to reason. Coke defines a maxim to be a conclusion of reason. He says in another place, a maxim is a proposition to be of all men confessed and granted without proof, argument, or discourse. Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. Maxims are but attempted general statements of rules of law and are law only to the extent of application in adjudicated cases. A Dictionary of Law by William C. Anderson, so called because its value is the highest and its authority the most reliable, and because it is accepted by all persons at the very highest. Bouvier's Law Dictionary. An established principle or proposition, a principle of law universally admitted as being just and constant with reason. Maxims in law are somewhat like axioms in geometry. They are principles and authorities, and part of the general customs or common law of the land, and are of the same strength as acts of parliament when the judges have determined what is a maxim, which belongs to the judges and not the jury. Maxims of law are holden for law, and all other cases that must be applied to them shall be taken for granted. The application of the maxim to the case before the court is generally the only difficulty. The true method of making the application is to ascertain how the maxim arose and to consider whether the case to which it is applied is in the same character or whether it is an exception to the apparently general rule. The alterations of any of the maxims of the common law are dangerous.
Yeah, last part again.
The alterations of any of the maxims of the common law are dangerous.
Wow.
Benefits are maxims relative to accidents and injury. An act of God does wrong to no one. The act of God does not injure. That is, no one is responsible for inevitable accidents. No, that was like with the basement, with the freaking flood, with the water. They said they're not responsible for stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No one is held to answer for the effects of a superior force or of an accident unless his own fault has contributed.
Well, so there you go. Right?
Yeah. The execution of law does no injury. An action is not given to one who is not injured. An action is not given to him who has received no damages. He who suffers a damage by his own fault has no right to complain. Mistakes, neglect, or misconducts are not to be regarded as accidents.
Mistakes, what?
Mistakes, neglect, or misconducts are not to be regarded as accidents. Whoever pays by mistake what he does not owe may recover it back, but he who pays, knowing he owes nothing, is presumed to give.
Say that one more time.
Hold on.
I think that's a deep statement.
Yeah, that was a real one.
He gives when he knows he owes nothing. It's a gift, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we've been doing.
Yeah, we've been given. He who pays, whoever pays by mistake what he does not owe may recover it back. But he who pays, knowing he owes nothing, is presumed to give.
So that's the basis that they're running.
Of the system that they have right now.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah.
This has all been on some gift.
Yeah. What one has paid, knowing it not to be due, with the intention of recovering it back, he cannot recover back. And then there's a note here. If the IRS accuses you of owing them money, or CRA accuses you of owing them money, if you want to go to court to dispute it, you must pay them in full what they demand and then sue them to get it back, which places the burden of proof upon the accused rather than the accuser. No man ought to be burdened in consequences of another's act. There may be damage or injury inflicted without any act of injustice. Not every loss produces the injury. A personal injury does not receive satisfaction from a future course of proceeding. Wrong is wiped out by reconciliation. An injury is extinguished by the forgiveness or reconcilement of the party injured.
Hold on, if you don't mind, I want to get the definition of reconciliation because
You got that?
Because I'm thinking that that's the premise that these Europeans now are using
With the truth and reconciliation
right.
thing, yeah.
So what?
Let's pull that. Read that one again, yeah.
Right?
But
the reconciliation part is where I think that they're playing games.
yeah. Because wrong is wiped out by reconciliation, but the reconciliation has to come from the party that's injured. The reconciliation is not coming from the party who committed
Not only that,
the injury.
I believe that within the definition of reconciliation, there's also equity.
Something there, yeah.
Equity and putting things back right,
Yeah.
which they're not doing. But they're using the word reconciliation from the surface part where, we've done wrong.
Yeah.
Now we're reconciling.
Yeah.
Well, in reconciling, you have to make things right.
Right. But again, in reconcile, it has to come from the victim. The victim has to be the one to say,
We're reconciling.
we're reconciled.
Well, fair enough.
Yeah. If the victim doesn't, it's not really reconciliation. It's really the perpetrator
Right.
saying that there's reconciliation when there really hasn't been any.
Which is done to within an illusory way, making it seem as if there's been reconciliation to right the wrong.
Yeah, you got the definition there?
Reconciliation.
Yeah, go ahead.
Reconcile. The etymology of it. Mid-14th century reconcile. Translated in reference to persons to restore to union and friendship after estrangement or variance. Also God or Christ, restore mankind sinners to favor or grace. From Old French reconcilier, 12th century, and directly from Latin reconciliere, to bring together again, regain, win over again, conciliate. Yeah, be friendly. That's the etymology of reconcile.
It's an etymology of it?
Yeah, that's the etymology of that.
Black's Law's fourth edition says renewal of amicable relations between two persons who have been at enmity or variance, usually implying forgiveness of injuries on one or both parties. It is sometimes used in the law of divorce as a term of synonymous and analogous to condonation. Martin verse Martin.
Also, really, I think it speaks much more to Cuyo's point about it, that it's really the indigenous will have to agree that there's been reconciliation.
So the whole thing of the
Sorry.
truth and reconciliation should have come from the indigenous people,
Well,
not from
right.
the colonials.
Well, yeah, the point is, to me, I think KRS One said it in his song "The Best." He was saying, you can't get mad at a people who don't even know themselves. But you say that from the perspective that as the slave people that they put us into that sort of status, them putting that on us and us accepting this, we haven't even been given a kick at the can, right? Because we've never even known what freedom is, or what having one's own ability to make a choice. And this is where I see this issue with the indigenous and the so-called European government, is that they decimated the indigenous as well as the Moors to the effect that there's not even a government there.
Yeah.
There's not a body politic like that.
Yeah.
This thing has been so fractured that they're just dealing with the pieces.
Yeah.
So they're controlling both sides of the narrative, because they're also controlling, in a sense, the chiefs.
Yeah.
Because on a certain level, they've also married into those lines.
Right. Yeah.
in a sense.
And then the chiefs, including the grand sheiks and whoever else that bought into the whole idea as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So it harkens back to Abraham Lincoln saying that we don't even have that government anymore. We've got to start something up to start the new foundation, right?
Yeah. Benefits and privileges. Favors from government often carry with them an enhanced measure of regulation. Anyone may renounce a law introduced for his own benefit. No one is obliged to accept a benefit against his consent. He who receives the benefit should also bear the disadvantage. He who derives a benefit from a thing ought to feel the disadvantages attending it. He who
Can you go back to the one with the benefit and
the consent.
maybe before that? Start with the benefit. If you can start with the benefits there again.
Let me go from the top. Favors from government often carry with them an enhanced measure of regulation. Anyone.
So that's the license, right?
Yeah, that's license and whatever else. Yeah. Anyone may renounce a law introduced for his own benefit. No one is obliged to accept a benefit against his consent.
So hold on. That's one.
No one is obliged to accept a benefit against his consent.
So to me, that's the one that I picked up on. When we get their so-called license and we put our threat, duress, and coercion, have we not then denied the benefit have we not denied the, so we denied the aspect of the
consent?
the consent?
Yeah.
So read it one more time again.
So because favors from the government often carry with them enhanced measure of regulation, we reserve our rights so that the benefit that we get can't be used against us as a disadvantage.
Absolutely.
Or they can't use it against us in any way, whether it's a disadvantage to us or against them or whatever.
But I go a step further, that in a sense, this so-called government that should have been for the people around restraining so-called government has really blown up outside itself from the perspective of taking control of a right that a government has no right to be able to sanction or to control, right? That being the right to travel.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you've got an instrument that emanates out of the government involving a right.
Involving a right that shouldn't be
that cannot, in a sense, be without, I guess, consent.
Yeah.
Or unless they change the aspect of what you're doing and make it into an event that the government can, which I guess would be commerce.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He who derives a benefit from a thing ought to feel the disadvantages attending it. He who
Well, that again speaks.
yeah
to it,
goes again
right?
to the same thing. Yeah.
Go ahead.
He who enjoys the benefit ought also bear the burden.
Well, that's it again.
Yeah.
Go on.
He who enjoys the advantage of a right takes the accompanying disadvantage.
Yeah.
A privilege is, as it were, a private law.
Wow. So there you go. That says it right there, right?
Yeah.
The privilege of driving.
The privilege is a private law. Whatever the
Which in a
privilege
sense,
is.
doesn't that put that into, that puts that into almost a kind of, what I'm trying to say is by making a private law, then that only
Applies to
the parties within
the parties within that private capacity. Yeah. A privilege is a personal benefit and dies with the person. One who avails himself of the benefits conferred by statute cannot deny its validity, which goes back again to the reservation of rights.
So it says the privilege dies with the person, right?
Yeah,
Would the privilege have an expiration date?
a privilege is a personal benefit that dies with the person.
Well, I guess only in conjunction with the thing of private law, which to me states that it seems to be about two parties or something, or maybe multiple parties within a private dynamic. So that almost seems to be something that certain people wouldn't even know about.
Mhm.
It's a private law.
Yeah, the fact that it's a private the
Right.
fact that it's a private law, people are ignorant of it, so
Right.
they think that it's a public thing. They
Right.
think that it applies to
Right,
any and everybody. Yeah.
And the government sells it like that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But interesting enough, Service Canada and those things which have been privatized, in a sense, prove that it really is a private thing, right?
Yeah. The fact that it's coming from private.
From private
Private
because, you know what,
institutions.
that should have been our
Yeah.
first. That should have been
Yeah.
our first sign.
Yeah.
But instant they privatized those services, made you realize that those services were
Unconstitutional?
well, yes, but I mean, remember the Constitution doesn't stop you from making contract. So ultimately, it's unconstitutional if you didn't sign the contract. But the fact that you're signing those contracts continually makes them constitutional under the aspect of you signing into contract, which is a constitutional right. Right? It's not contracts that are unconstitutional. It's unconstitutional contracts
That are unconstitutional.
that are unconstitutional.
Adhesion.
Right. So ultimately, that's where I say that the whole privilege dies with the entity because and that's what shows you that it really doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It only exists within the matter of those two entities involved.
Yeah. What I approve, I do not reject. I cannot approve and reject at the same time. I cannot take the benefit of an instrument and at the same time repudiate it. Which again goes back to the reservation of rights again.
Well, yeah, that's where I think that's where I say
Because once you agree to the instrument, now you're bound to everything that comes with the instrument.
Fair enough, but that's been something we've talked about this before, where I feel that in going through this process of nationalization, Europeans, they walk through here, they walk through the air. We, as Black people, walk through water, let's say, right? That's the resistance that we face. As a Moor, we're going to be walking through mud, right? The kind of resistance we're going to face.
Yeah.
So ultimately, that's where I've seen, I was going to say that before I left, to get the juice, which is that's why I think a lot of unawakened Moors, i.e. Black people, when they get to the part that now to be a Moor, I gotta walk through the fucking mud.
Yeah, I might as well take water. Yeah.
No, it's too much for them. They've been walking through water for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
Now you want me to walk through mud. But what I realized is in walking through the mud, when you finally get through the mud, i.e. nature, i.e. Taj, i.e. Cujo, you're in air again.
Yeah.
To a certain degree.
Yeah.
But it's that mud that really is the point that we've been under stress long enough and now you're almost stressing us even more, even though it's just for that last little bit.
Yeah.
To then free yourself.
Yeah. Or the thing of the guy hammering, digging, you know, and then give up 1 inch before all the gold and the diamonds or whatever like that.
Right.
Yeah. He who does any benefit to another for me is considered as doing it to me.
Say that one more time.
He who does any benefit to another for me is considered as doing it to me. That's how they get everybody messed up. Because once they do it to one, they do it to all. He who does any benefit to another for me is considered as doing it to me. Which again goes back to the thing of nationality and distinguishing ourselves from.
But sorry to cut you. I think what the most important part of that is he who does another thing for another for me.
Yeah.
So to me, there seems to be a contract
or some type of joinder.
Or
Yeah.
joinder
Yeah.
to the for me.
Yeah.
Which seems to be the actual linchpin to all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Which almost in a sense, what came to my mind was at that point, this healer guy who I'd been going to for my hip way back in the day had said, I was talking to him about interacting with people on the streets that were homeless and we were trying to help them and blah, blah, blah. And he made this comment about how one of his aspects or his feelings was that when you interacted with a person, all of a sudden, oh yeah, that's what he was saying. That when you were talking to someone, they were talking about their issues, all of a sudden in that moment, when that sharing happened, there was almost a contract that was created.
Yeah. Yeah.
The fact that you were interacting with it and then you were actually getting into his the basis of his issues and his stuff, there was a certain kind of, as I said, relationship.
The details, yeah.
A certain type of relationship,
Yeah.
a certain type of energy
Yeah.
you then took on
Right.
within that part that wasn't there before. And that's what came to me when that was being talked about. Because I'm trying to think about a scenario where someone else is doing something for me. Oh, I guess that's what you're talking about when they're saying we're going to give everyone something, right? I guess they're giving it for me. Is that what they're saying?
I was looking at it like just as we're using the licenses thing or whatever. He would be the alleged government or whatever, right?
And the me would be the Ontario
And the me would be the people.
giving that,
Giving
to
that,
people,
yeah.
which means that you're giving it to me.
Once
right?
you give it to one, then all of them are obligated to it.
Yeah. I get it. As long.
Commerce. Caveat emptor. You already know what that is. Let the purchaser beware. Let the buyer beware. Let the seller beware. The payment of the price stands in the place of a sale.
Say that one more time.
The payment of the price stands in the place of a sale. The payment of the price of a thing is held as a purchase.
Go back to that first one again.
The first one, the payment of the price stands in the place of a sale.
Oh, maybe that's because a sale is something that is given to everyone. So that then if you pay the price, then there is no sale.
Actually, you want to check sale in there? See what the hell sale is.
I think, because when they say there's a yard sale,
Yeah.
that means there's a bunch of stuff
Yeah,
for sale.
right.
When you pay the price, there's no sale. The sale might be the aspect of bartering, maybe, or doing that thing where you're negotiating. So that's a formula that he's related to. Yeah, he's talking about. See, this is what I said. When you hear some of these maxims, are those maxims?
Yeah.
When you see these things are predicated back on common law.
Yeah.
Which there would be a sale. Let's say we're selling these slaves. I'm going to pay that price. No sale.
Yeah.
Right? You paid the price. The price being the bounty, in a sense. Huh? What was the other one? Something in terms of a purchase?
The other one was the payment of the price of a thing is held as a purchase.
Payment of the price of a thing is held as a purchase. Well, that makes sense.
The payment of a price of a thing is held as a purchase.
Purchase is something when you buy something, right?
Mhm.
The price is the value of the thing that they're saying. Whether you pay that price or not will determine whether it becomes a sale. And in paying that price, you purchased it.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that item no longer is for sale because the price is paid for.
Because price was paid for it. Goods are worth as much as they can be sold for. Goods are worth as much as they can be sold for.
Well,
Gas price right now.
I had an adage to that. Someone said, I can't remember the philosophy that said that if you bought a watch for $5 and sold it for 10, then that was profit or something. If you bought a watch for $5 and sold it for 50, I think they were going more along the lines of that was theft or something. So to me, whatever the price that you can get for something, what did you say? What's the saying again?
Goods are worth as much as they can be sold for.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that because I think that it brings into effect the ability for people
To scheme.
to manipulate.
Yeah. Even with the 3,500 for papers.
But you know what? That might be the maximum that these people are going on, though,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that's where the maximum law then creates the benefit and the disadvantage, right? From the perspective that
The manipulation of it. Yeah. Using the maxim. But then doesn't that cancel? Does that cancel out? Does that cancel out the maxim then if they use it if they use the maxim in the wrong context?
No, I don't know. I think that some of these maxims are sort of these things that stand in their purity.
Right. It has to be. Yeah.
You come to the market with 5 chickens and someone wants to pay you $8, $6 for those chickens. That's a great price. But then if you and your buddy, the farmers,
Stole the chickens.
Stole the chickens, or had whatever or decided to do something to inflate the price of those chickens. Then to me, that kind of in a sense warps that maxim, or I don't know. It just feels that there's a lot of stuff we pay for that I think the value is not commensurate with what it is. Exactly. We've been manipulated to pay it because of other things.
Mere recommendation of an article does not bind the vendor of it. Mere recommendation of an article does not bind the vendor of it. Mere recommendation. It is settled that there is to be considered. It is settled that there is to be considered the home of each one of us, where he may have his habitation and account books, and where he has made an establishment of his business. No rule of law protects a buyer who willfully closes his ears to information or refuses to make inquiry when circumstances of grave suspicion imperatively demand it. Let everyone employ himself in what he knows. He at whose risk a thing is done should receive the profits arising from it. He at whose risk a thing is done should receive the benefits arising from it. Yeah, that's true. Usury is odious in law.
What are you reading from this?
This is from It's on ecclesia.org, ecclesia.org/truth/maxims. Commerce. Oh no, common sense. When you doubt, do not act. It is a fault to meddle with what does not belong to or does not concern you. It is a fault to meddle with what does not belong to or does not concern you. Many men know many things. No one knows everything. One is not present unless he understands. That one's heavy. One is not present unless he understands. It avails little to know what ought to be done if you do not know how it is to be done. It avails little to know what ought to be done if you do not know how it is to be done.
I think that applies to us.
See, they're not throwing you over there, are they? He who questions well, learns well. He who questions well, learns well. Whatever is done in excess is prohibited by law. No one is bound to give information about things he is ignorant of, but everyone is bound to know that which he gives information about. No man is bound to have foreknowledge of a divine or future event. No one is bound to arm his adversary. Consent and contracts maxims. Consent makes the law. A contract is a law between the parties which can acquire force only by consent. Consent makes the law. The terms of a contract, lawful in its purpose, constitute the law as between the parties. To him consenting, no injury is done. To him consenting, no injury is done. That's another one of those ones that is questionable.
Yeah, no, but that so made me think, like no injuries done on the part that gave the contract for that person to consent, because essentially. Like,
Oh yeah, it could be them. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Well,
He who consents cannot. No. To him consenting, no injury is done.
To the one that.
Oh, to him.
Yeah, to him consenting. Yeah,
One sign off is right.
oh, but I,
no injury should be done, but injury is done to people who sign themselves away all the
Once you
damn
sign
time.
this injury.
Yeah.
no, but you're saying that ignorance of the law is no excuse.
Yeah.
So we know that these driver's licenses aren't those things. Yet we consent to them.
Yeah.
We deserve whatever we get.
Whatever we get from it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Same
what I'm
thing with
saying.
mortgages. So to me, it's way exact. The problem is that there's not an alternative to the consent part, which I think is where the problem is. That we can't then continue to exercise the rights that are given to us under the man, the God's law or man's law. We have to, in a sense, consent to whatever they have to be able to do certain things, which then makes our consent kind of co-opted.
So basically, like, that's basically what the police use to like to whoop you when they say when they pull out the ID and they say, "Is this you?" And then people go with it instead of like like the other day I was talking about that where they're saying like when they pull out the ID and say, "Is this you?" They're talking about the object, the car. We're not talking about the name.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking like that's what they're.
Yeah.
That falls in line with that, right? You can consent to that, like, yeah, this card is.
This is me.
You're an object.
Now you just admitted that you're,
Well, I almost see that it connects the inanimate to the physical, to the living, right? Which is not. No, that's a contract that I use. That's not me. Once you say that to you, you are right. You then become inanimate to them. That's where I see it. Though you're living, breathing, producing a contract card to them, and then they're asking you, "Are you this contract?" And then you say, "Yeah, I am." So then they can beat up on the contract.
Exactly.
But I think that's where, in the end, it plays itself out to be real. Because at the end of the day, you drop their license, anything that's on that license gets left on the license, dies with the privilege, right? But then you just don't have that license anymore. Can you now go and navigate on the land? No, because ultimately they've got these armed guards that'll come and say that you need to have a contract to do that. But that's where your right to travel then becomes the battle.
Islam. Consent removes or obviates a mistake. Consent removes or obviates a mistake. He who mistakes is not considered as consenting.
So, again?
He who mistakes is not considered as consenting.
Well, I think that should apply to us again.
Yeah.
We've realized that we made a mistake.
Yeah.
We're now not consenting.
Yeah.
Isn't that like more like a pronoun tongue or something? Or
Yes, in a sense, that's another way of seeing it. But no, I think. Well, yeah, no, because num per tongue means
no?
then for now, and I see it more being now for now. Num per tongue means you're saying, I know this was a mistake. Now I want you to go back in the past and erase all that shit. From my perspective, you can't do that. But from this point on, now that I told you that I'm not consenting, things have to stop. That's where I see that.
Every consent involves a submission, but a mere submission does not necessarily involve consent. Every Negro is a Moor, but not every Moor is a Negro.
Every
Negro is a Moor, but not every
Because more
is a Negro. Yeah.
And then you have all the, sorry, I didn't mean to cut it.
No, go ahead, Mark.
The Negroes go, no, I'm not a Moor.
yeah, right.
Yes, you are.
More he's not a Negro. Wherever you go, he's a Moor.
Yeah, that game is crazy. A contract founded on a base and unlawful consideration or against good morals is null and void.
Say it again?
A contract founded on a base and unlawful consideration or against good morals is null.
Pretty much every contract that's up here.
Yeah, every contract that's out there. One who wills a thing to be or not be done cannot complain of that thing as an injury. One who wills a thing to be or to be done, one who wills a thing to be, or I think that's supposed to be not to be done, cannot complain of a thing as an injury. The agreement of the parties makes the law of the contract. The contract makes the law. Agreements give the law to the contract. The agreement of the parties overcomes or prevails against the law. Advice, unless fraudulent, does not create an obligation. Advice, unless fraudulent, does not create an obligation. No action arises out of an immoral consideration. No action arises out of an immoral consideration.
What was the last one? The one before you just.
Advice, unless fraudulent, does not create an obligation.
So does that have to do with like when they kidnap you and then they try to put you on the phone with some lawyer and they say they're gonna give you legal advice?
Yeah, that could apply to that. Yeah.
Because they can be straight lying to you, but
Yeah.
False concealment.
Mhm.
Exactly.
An attorney was fired at the last hearing.
Yeah. Yeah. No action arises on an immoral contract. In the agreements of the contracting parties, the rule is to regard the intention rather than the words. In the agreements of the contracting parties, the rule is to regard the intention rather than the words. Yeah, that's a real one. The right, please more, Islam. The right of survivorship does not exist among merchants for the benefit of commerce. The right of survivorship does not exist among merchants for the benefit of commerce. When two persons are liable on a joint obligation, if one makes default, the other must bear the whole. You ought to know with whom you deal. That one's straightforward. He who contracts knows or ought to know the quality of the person with whom he contracts, otherwise he is not excusable.
People sign the book here?
I like that.
Oh, no.
The quality of the person, so it doesn't really give you anything. You have to be a corporate person.
Yeah.
Actual person.
He who contracts knows or ought to know the quality of the person with whom he contracts, otherwise he is not excusable. He who approves cannot reject. If anything is due to a corporation, it is not due to the individual members of it, nor do the members individually owe what the corporation owes. That's again going back to the thing of in disputes, the naming the parties and not being vague. Agreement takes the place of the law. The express understanding of parties supersedes such understanding as the law would imply. Manner and agreement overrule the law. The essence of a contract being assent, there is no contract where assent is wanting. Court and pleas maxims. There can be no plea of that thing of which the dissolution is sought. A false plea is the basis of all things. There can be no plea against an action which entirely destroys the plea. He who does not deny admits. No one is believed in court but upon his oath. An infamous person is repelled or prevented from taking an oath. In law, none is credited unless he is sworn. All the facts must, when established by witnesses, be under oath or affirmation. An act of the court shall oppress no one. You'll be violating that regularly. The practice of a court is the law of the court. Yep. There ought to be an end of lawsuits. It concerns the Commonwealth that there be an end of lawsuits. Really. It is for the public good that there be an end of litigation. It is for the public good that there be an end of litigation.
The previous one was the Commonwealth.
It concerns the Commonwealth that there be an end of lawsuits. Yeah. A personal action dies with the person. This must be understood of an action for a tort only. Equity acts upon the person. No one can sue in the name of another. No one can sue in the name of another. Peace, yo, it's good. What's up, y'all? Court appearances. This is why we should avoid voluntarily appearing in court. A general appearance occurs, antecedent irregularity of processes, a defective service, etc. Certain legal consequences are attached to the voluntary act of a person. The presence of the body cures the error in the name. The truth of the name cures an error in the description. An error in the name is immaterial if the body is certain. An error in the name is nothing when there is certainty as to the person. The truth of the demonstration removes the error of the name. That's the same thing you're talking about with the ID. Right. Crime and punishment. A madman is punished by his madness alone. The instigator of a crime is worse than he who perpetrates it. They who consent to an act and they who do it shall be visited with equal punishment. Acting and consenting parties are liable to the same punishment. No one is punished for his thoughts. No one is punished for merely thinking of a crime. He who has committed iniquity shall not have equity. He who is once bad is presumed to always He who is once bad is presumed to be always so in the same degree. He who is once criminal is presumed to always be criminal in the same kind or way. Whatever is once bad is presumed to be so always in the same degree. He who does not forbid a crime while he may sanctions it. He who does not blame approves. He is clear of blame who knows but cannot prevent. No one is to be punished for the crime or wrong of another. No guilt attaches to him who is compelled to obey. Gross negligence is held equivalent to intentional wrong. Misconduct binds its own authors. It is never a failing axiom that everyone is accountable only for his own offense or wrong. In offenses, the will and not the consequence are to be looked at. It is to the intention that all law applies. The intention of the party is the soul of the instrument. Every act is to be estimated by the intention of the doer. An act does not make a man a criminal unless his intention be criminal. There's a theme here. An act does not make a person guilty unless the intention be also guilty. This maxim applies only to criminal cases. In civil matters, it is otherwise. In offenses, the intention is regarded, not the event. The intention amounts to nothing unless some effect follows. Take away, what was that movie again with when they were, wasn't it the Tom Cruise movie? Was that Minority Report or one of them ones? When they were getting people before they commit the crime?
That's Minority Report.
Minority Report? Yeah. An act does not make criminal unless his intention be criminal. Take away the will, and every action will be indifferent. Your motive gives the name to your act. An outlaw is, as it were, put out of protection of the law. Vainly does he who offends against the law seek the help of the law. Drunkenness inflames and produces every crime. Drunkenness both aggravates and reveals every crime. He who sins when drunk shall be punished when sober.
There was an incident, I was reading an article. This drunk driver got caught with a stolen car. He had his toolie in his lap and everything. Woke up and went over there waiting.
Just waiting. Punishment is due if the words of an oath to be false. A prison is established not for the sake of punishment, but of detention and guarding. Those sinning secretly are punished more severely than those sinning openly. Punishment ought not precede a crime. If one falsely accuses another of a crime, the punishment due to that crime should be inflicted upon the perjured informer. Deuteronomy 19:18. Right, yep. Customs and usages. Long time and long use beyond the memory of man suffices for right. A long time and long use beyond the memory of man suffices for right. Custom is the best expounder of the law. Custom is another law. A prescriptive and legitimate custom overcomes the law. Custom leads to willing. Law compels or draws the unwilling. Usage is the best interpreter of things. Custom is the best interpreter of laws. What is done contrary to the custom of our ancestors neither pleases nor appears right. Going back to our stuff with honoring the forefathers, so that way there's a standard, long time use.
Back up to that scripture again, what was it?
Deuteronomy 19:18.
That same Deuteronomy, my mom, when she was around, that's one of the things that I use with her to let her know that the Bible is a law for Christians. When I tell her, all her life she's Jehovah's Witness, and she don't know that the Bible is a law. So when I tell her many places in Deuteronomy, go look them up and see what it said. Place one part, it said you gotta abide by the laws of this book. means if it's the laws of this book, then it's a law book, man.
Yeah.
Then she get it. All her life she didn't know it's a law book. She think it's the Holy Bible.
Holy, yeah.
Deuteronomy, the same one there.
Leviticus is amazing.
Right?
Yeah.
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 It's all about law.
Mhm. Where two rights concur, the more ancient shall be preferred. Expressions and words, maxims. The meaning of words is the spirit of the law. Romans 8:2.
Hold on. Yo, that last thing you said, doesn't that kind of coincide with the guy in the comment section talking about, oh, the problem is they're trying to go by old laws that are non-existent or some stuff like that.
Yeah.
You just said that the ancient is
going to be preferred. Yeah.
And the move right now is what after they did the coup d'etat
Mhm.
of 1871. So
Mhm.
the law that they're going by now is false. It's
Right.
false.
Yeah.
It's false.
Yeah. The more ancient shall be preferred. And that'll also depend on whoever it is that you're dealing with. Because if the person that you're dealing with doesn't honor or respect the ancient law, then they're probably about to, go in your pockets and take your stuff and all that. Yeah. It is immaterial whether a man gives his assent by words or by actions and deeds. It matters not whether a revocation be by words or by acts. What is expressed renders what is implied silent. The unequivocal statement prevails over an implication. In ambiguous expressions, the intention of the person using them is chiefly to be regarded. The expression of those things which are tacitly implied operates nothing. The expression of one thing is the exclusion of another. A general expression is to be construed generally. Yeah, really. A general expression implies nothing certain. Right? And then going back to when you do court sessions that we make special appearance, not general appearance, because the general expression implies nothing certain, which is why they could assume jurisdiction or whatever, because being general, you're not being specific.
Well,
You're being vague.
Does it not also, in a sense, create a jurisdiction right there?
Yeah.
Which is what they probably.
Which is what they're looking for.
Which is what they're looking
Yeah.
for. So then create the same thing within the body of the fight
Mm-hmm.
that you've already got from the onset.
Yeah.
General appearance.
Yeah. When the words and the mind agree, there is no place for interpretation. Every interpretation either declares, extends, or restrains. The best interpretation is made from things preceding and following, i.e., the context. Words are to be interpreted according to the subject matter. He who considers merely the letter of an instrument goes but skin deep into its meaning. He who considers merely the letter of an instrument goes but skin deep into its meaning. Going back to the thing again with the license, the passport, the social, the whatever, everybody looking at those as actual instruments. But if you're not going deep into what those things are, or whatever the subject matter is, if you're not going deeper into what it is, you're probably about to get played. Frequently, where the propriety of words is attended to, the meaning of truth is lost. Frequently, words are to be taken most strongly against him who uses them. Words are to be taken most strongly against him who uses them. Yeah. Right. So meaning that same thing as before, that you have to know what you're talking about.
I mean,
Like-
if your words are taken against you, break it.
Yeah, so the words that you're using, or whatever words you're using, like if we're saying if we're talking with somebody and they say, you know, black people,
Oh,
and they go with that as the thing.
but the time when you could use the right words.
When you use the right words, now you're being right,
Oh,
or you're being exact in your language. Or if we say persons, people should do this or people should do that, not knowing that person is corporation, person is, you know what I mean? Person is natural, person is multiple things, you know what I mean? Or like when the dude said race, when he saw race is human, and then it triggered him in his mind. Oh yeah, hold on a second. Yeah, race is human.
yesterday,
Race isn't black, white, orange, blue, purple, or whatever. Yeah. You had something? You're gonna.
No, yesterday I was showing I think they are South American.
Mm.
My ID, we're talking about race thing, and I said, no, there's no such thing as racism, whatever, because it's only one human race,
Yeah.
a different nation. So I showed my ID, see my race, what it is, human, just like you, human race, one.
Mhm.
Yesterday we had a conversation.
One race. Fiction's maxims. A fiction is a rule of law that assumes something which is or may be false as true.
Say it again?
A fiction is a rule of law that assumes something which is or may be false as true.
Colorful.
Yeah. Where truth is, fiction of law does not exist. There is no fiction without law. Fictions arise from the law and not law from fictions. Fiction is against the truth, but it is to have truth,
So that's why they say every lie has truth.
has truth in it.
Well, and also I think that the aspect of fiction coming out of law, I think what it's really saying is law is fiction as well. In a sense, from the perspective that there are, or at least the law that they're saying
Yeah,
is fiction.
yeah. Fictions arise from
Common
law.
law wouldn't be fiction, but the law for Ontario, in a sense, is a form of fiction.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's not even law.
Right, but I'm saying what they consider to be law, out of that comes fiction.
Yeah, but not that law comes from fictions.
Right.
Yeah, but fictions do come from law because it has to exist. Yeah,
It's so funny, it's kind of.
yeah.
It's like
Two sides. Yeah,
It's like truth.
truth and
and
falsehood.
divine truth.
Yeah,
Or truth and divine truth.
yeah,
Because you could be talking the truth, but that's not really the divine truth.
yeah.
But it's the truth, but not divine truth.
Not divine truth. Yeah, yeah.
That's kind of like masculine and feminine.
Mm.
Feminine, so
hmm
feminine can bring forth masculine and feminine, but
Yeah, but masculine can't. Yeah,
can bring it forth.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
You need the feminine.
yeah. A fiction of law injures no one. Fiction of law is wrongful. Fiction of law is wrongful. It is works, loss, or injury to anyone. In a fiction of law, equity always subsists.
Say those last two again.
Fiction of law is wrongful.
That's it?
No, fiction of law is wrongful. Is it if it works, loss, or injury to anyone? There's a misspell in there somewhere.
Okay, go ahead.
And a fiction of law injures no one. In a fiction of law, equity always subsists.
That makes sense, yeah. Fiction of law, injury.
And then the last one is fiction of law.
Injures no one.
The very last one, fiction of law.
Fiction of law is wrongful, but there's some misspell. It says,
No. The last one you say fiction of law is something about equity.
oh, in a fiction of law, equity always subsists.
Yeah, see, that to me speaks to the corporate made up part of it. That the fiction of the law is what creates the aspect of some kind of payment or some kind of righting, righting of the wrong, which would be equity. Or the equity as seen by that law.
Yeah.
That makes sense, right?
Mhm.
When really we don't know, we would, technically if we were living right, there would be no aspect of those kind of laws to be there, because we would all be operating rightfully and respectfully to everyone, so that there would never be any imbalances. At least that's how I interpret it.
Yeah.
That kind of speaks to this whole. Sorry, but
No,
that kind
go
of
ahead.
speaks to this whole system.
Yeah.
Because when they arrest you, you get charged.
Hey, Hugo, you gotta check these guys out, checking us out in the church here. They've been working their way down.
Oh, down
down the
to.
block. And the brother's been over there, they've been wanting to check it out, so they have their little guy here, they're having this conversation, that kind of started up the hill. And he's got his glasses, right, watching, he's like, and then he's watching, kind of checking things. Watch, this is crazy.
I know. You know they want to come in.
Remember we had the Jesus in the potted plant there the other day?
Yeah.
And then the scriptures up on the thing, and these guys are doing some recruiting.
Water?
You know they're going to recruit.
It's crazy though. You know, I think to myself, because we're not in there recruiting, right? It's kind of open door.
Yeah.
Well, isn't what's it called? So the Constitution said not supposed to in there.
Yeah. Even that. Yeah. That's their
Do
jurisdiction.
you think I should pull that? Do you think I should pull that?
Well, shit.
Should I?
Yeah, just nod, make it look good. Just nod. No, I'm saying they're outside, just nod and smile. Just nod and smile.
You say praise Jesus.
Heirs maxims. God and not man make the heir. God alone makes an heir, not man. Co-heirs are deemed as one body or person by reason of the unity of the right which they possess. No one can be both owner and heir at the same time. An heir,
That would be trustee.
yeah, that would be the trust, the selling trust courses people. Telling them, yeah, just create a trust, put your stuff in there, then you just, protect your property. No, you can't be an owner and an heir at the same time. Stop it. An heir is either by right of property or right of representation. An heir is the same person with his ancestor, because the ancestor during his life bears in his body of law all his heirs. Heir is a collective name or noun. Several co-heirs are as one body by reason of the unity of right which they possess. The law favors a man's inheritance. Heir is a term of law. Son, one of nature.
Sorry, say that one again. Last one.
Heir is a term of law.
Heir.
Heir.
A-I-R.
H-E-I-R.
Heir.
Yeah. Heir is a term of law. Yeah. An heir is another self, and a son is a part of the father. The heir succeeds to the restitution, not the penalty.
So you know that speaks to us, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
From the perspective that we're supposed to be getting our restitution,
Yeah.
not paying the penalty.
Right. The heir succeeds to the restitution, not the penalty. And all we've been doing is getting penalties. That's all we get. Penalties. But then if you're not an heir, that's what you get.
You abandon the
If you're not an heir, that's what you
They
get.
created 2 or 3 jurisdictions in front of the heirship,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Once you go back to your ear, you're the rightful person.
Yeah.
You can go back. In other words, when I used to explain it to people, I tell them, like, they keep saying the black people want their restitution, but in other words, when your people was leaving the land or the estate for you, they didn't leave it into black people's name.
Yeah.
You gotta go back to the name that they had
That they left it.
before you can get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can go and you name John, but they leave it in Tom's name. And all years go by, you change your name from Tom to John, and then you go back as John to
go get what's for Tom. Yeah.
You can't get it.
Yeah.
You can't get it.
But hold on, but what if the name John was put on you?
However you get it.
However you get that
I
name.
would agree to that. I would say this: if someone forced a different name on you, and then you came to realize that you were really Tom,
Yeah.
you should be able to go back
Yeah.
and say, "Hey, look, I just came out of slavery. It's Tom, not
Yeah,
John."
not John.
Yeah, but you're supposed to say it. Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
to claim your
Yeah.
name. If you
I
know
see.
that you're operating under a slave name,
Yeah.
and you don't do anything about it, it's called acquiescence.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we agree with that.
Yeah.
So
The problem
can't
is
go back.
that we have been, the acquiescence, the name is connected to everything.
Mhm.
So in a sense, even though we're actively not acquiescing here, we're acquiescing over there, in a sense. So they kind of got us on multiple levels.
Yeah.
The issue of what this is we've got to clear ourselves out of all of that fraudulent stuff.
Yeah.
To then be able to claim the stuff.
To be able to
Because
claim.
we'll say, oh, I'm just using, rough language. I'm Kunta over here, but I'm John to get my check.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now you got a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're still getting you got a bank account in John's name,
Yeah.
but you're Kunta Kinte out here,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
the
I
issue,
think again too, we remember too with that, you have rights to use that same name too, with contracts and whatever, and all you get into your thing with them.
well, the deal being,
Because again, that's the proof of my slavery, that you
you're
can say.
absolutely right
So I have
there.
rights to it too, but I'm not it.
Yeah.
Well, but here's where I say the unique part about that is, you're absolutely right. They put something on you, they're receiving a benefit from it. You're allowed to receive the residual benefits of what they put on you, in a sense, by the fact that they put that on you. Where the issue comes is when you start to actively take advantage of some of the things that come with that slave thing,
Mhm.
even though you know better.
Yeah.
In a sense, right? Okay, you put this on me, I get my government check. All right, I never asked for this, so I'll take that benefit. Meanwhile, you're in my account doing all kinds of shit with it. But at the end of the day, if you start then going and applying for, EI or something, at that point, you've taken that same contract that you know was wrong and shouldn't be used and used it for a benefit.
Yeah.
So you get yourself into a little trouble, but we know that in the end of the day, we've been so, not indoctrinated, but we're so controlled and so colonized on every angle that at a time, we may have to, let's say, go in and get an EI or a welfare check, as an
Yeah.
example.
You brought up peace and friendship, where they're
Yeah.
supposed to leave us to live up
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah.
But that's not happening.
Yeah.
It's not, but it's what
But
it is.
doing,
That's
yeah,
why we gotta defend
going
and
and,
talk about that.
yeah.
No, but you know what, sorry, the beautiful point that you brought up, that was one of the things I've been thinking about today. I wanted to mention this with Cujo, that we even talk about these people as government. They're not government.
Yeah.
They're a bunch of rabid criminals.
Yeah.
And we gotta stop thinking this is where we fall into it. Okay, we're gonna go to the government, and talk to them about this. That ain't the government.
Yeah.
That's a bunch of effing
Yeah.
criminals,
Yeah.
and you ain't gonna get anything.
Nothing from them.
Our problem is that the indoctrinating that government, which rightfully, correctly so, is what it is. It's like Todd always says. It's not the government, it's not the prospect of the government and the infrastructure that's wrong. It's the people in it.
Yeah.
That's a police officer.
Yeah.
If he was elected and he was doing his job, then that's the guy you go to.
Yeah.
But he's a criminal that they hired.
Yeah.
So at this point now, he ain't a police officer.
No.
Yeah.
And that's where I think we have to start getting over that hump. But that hump has been brought about by the fact that we are even more removed from our nationality and still need to go back to some semblance of what is supposed to be right and exact for us, i.e. the government, to help us to get on our feet.
Yeah.
Right? Because that would be technically the place that you would go for help, right?
Yeah. But they also know by doing that, then they're giving the stuff right back to the people who's gonna tell them, you haven't been doing your
Well,
jobs, get the
absolutely,
hell out of here.
but that's how they've been running game on us.
Yeah.
What you realize is every other nation goes to themselves.
Yeah.
And then comes to the government, and then
Yeah.
the government has to contract with them in a right and exact way because they know that these people have a force majeure
Yeah.
that if they mess with them, they're gonna have
We were
problems.
talking about earlier before you came. You seen the thing when they ran Jagmeet Singh out of Brampton?
No, what happened? See what I'm saying? These people know how to handle themselves, bro.
Like, got some questions for you, and then I got in the car and moved out. That's it.
Took off,
Yeah.
yo.
It's all people.
Hey, if you probably got a lockdown, took off his turban and wiped his brow.
Wiped his brow. Wiped his brow.
That's who? Who's that?
Let me sing, MVP.
The Punjabi leader,
They
yeah.
ran him out,
They
why?
ran him out of Brampton. Yeah, I guess they know he's about nothing good. You know?
Thinking about what's going on.
They know where the finance went.
So, you know where I see that? This was the other part that I was bringing up. That what's happened is, that's where I think Abraham Lincoln in his speech said that we're on the barren ground. The ground really being the foundation
Mhm.
of the new Genesis, right? Of whatever that new thing is. The new thing would be the government enacting itself again, which is what the so-called American government is, that has been co-opted. Jagmeet Singh, to me, is a hotel operator.
Yeah.
He's an agent
Yeah,
who's
yeah.
been put in place to be
To make it
facade that
seem
you
like,
think
yeah.
that there's some Hindustani guy out there really operating for
Operating
people.
for the people, and when they know,
Really, he's an agent.
Yeah.
Remember, the defense minister is Singh too, right?
yeah, and then the governor generals, the indigenous,
Right.
European indigenous lady, yeah.
And you remember I was telling you about that where they were following Trudeau around with the peace drum?
Yeah.
And they were saying all of Canada is our land, all of Canada is indigenous, all of Canada, and then the little uncle Aunt Jemima said, well, we pray that you work with the federal government. Which at the end of the day is saying the federal government of Canada. Which in the end is claiming jurisdiction again
Mhm.
on a land that's not theirs to a federal government that has no power. Yeah, it's some deep shit.
Deep.
That's not even a government, it's a private company.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh?
They tell you in history.
Yeah,
Colonies.
yeah.
And that's the other,
Explain it to them.
that's the other thing I've been realizing. They're always telling you exactly what's up.
What's up?
Always telling
It's
you
like
what's
a
up.
dollar. It's right there on it. Federal Reserve notes belong to them, not the government. He didn't say Federal Reserve government on that $1 bill.
Yeah.
No, he said Federal Reserve note.
Yep.
He didn't say government.
Even the ones here tell you property of the Bank of Canada.
Canada, and it says what it's supposed to be legal tender.
Yeah.
But when you look up legal tender, it's currency, and currency is supposed to be paper. Why am I holding a polymer?
Yeah. Yeah. Plastic. Melting money.
So yeah, you guys were back on, sorry, you guys were back on saying the acquiescence part, right? Well, You were stating, so your position was that it's an agreement, it's being an agreement. Oh, it's not standing up for it, which creates the contract.
Yeah.
Because that's what you were saying, right, Noir? That if you leave your land and then come back to it in another person's name, then you shouldn't be able to take your heritage, right? Is that what you were saying?
No, but not in the name you come back. You
Right.
gotta go back,
Yeah.
come back in the proper name.
You have to come back to the proper name.
It's like before we were talking about the proper person in the courts. I went there, man, and I said, when I go in there, and like wanted me to say appear. No. I'm here on special appearance, check, corrosion, extortion, and I'm going, and the JP said, sir, stop. I said, sir, you asked me a question. If you don't want me to answer you,
Don't ask me no questions.
don't ask me no question. That's how I give my answer. But you know, wait till me out. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not a judge. Yeah, no, I'm a chief.
I'm not a judge.
Courtroom 201, there's a
So just stop. You call him on the spot. He's like, hold on, I'm just a janitor. No, but that's really what it's about.
Yeah.
Really?
Stated in my proper person.
Yep. But he challenged that jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
They got to
He's
yield.
stopping me.
Yeah.
I said, my friend, what you want me to answer you? You just have to let me answer. I don't ask me nothing. I said, my people in the court, they look at this woman. oh, this old man talking to the judge like that. The judge has to end up take him out, get him out, bring him to somewhere else, not here. Yeah.
Because they don't want you to do it around people that
No.
come and talk to you after.
Yeah.
They want to know, yo, what do you know?
What do you
I
know? Yeah.
that made you react.
Yeah.
Which just has me thinking, oh, maybe that's why they went to online.
Yeah, even that,
That's why
yeah.
they don't want to send
Yeah, yeah,
online.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
that's that
All they could is mute you. All they could do is mute you.
Yeah, but that's where I think you're noticing that was just like trying to get rid of the dollar bill or get rid of mail. In a sense, they can't, because from my perspective, 90% of the work that they do is having you in the flesh.
Yeah.
So being online, you could, like, you remember you were there for when I had challenged them.
Oh, yeah,
on
yeah,
the whole
with your-
thing.
yeah,
At the end of the day, it's just like, F you.
Yeah.
You don't got me. You know what I mean? I'm in a room here, you're in a room there. You can't.
You
say
can't-
anything.
you can't do anything
I
right
put the
now.
off switch right now. Yeah. Try that when you're in the court, right? All of a sudden you have these bailiffs moving up on you and shit like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
You're sitting behind these bars for a couple hours while you stew and hope that they come to their senses. Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying.
it's like backfiring on them. It's like they can't win.
Yeah.
They can't win.
Well, I think
They
what
don't
it is,
really have, they don't have a contingency plan for people that they didn't educate. They don't expect you to know those things.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
don't, there's no way for them to combat it. So
Yeah.
when you go in there, the
They're
best
not
thing
ready,
they
they're
can do
not-
is try to neutralize the situation
Yeah.
by not allowing you to spread that information.
well, and the other part that they do is that they just rule erroneously too. They
Yeah.
have the power to do that.
Yeah, ex parte or whatever,
They'll-
yeah.
They'll kick you out on, what is it called?
Yeah,
again?
ex parte,
No,
yeah.
no, they'll kick you out on when you stand into the judge and they call it,
Oh, contempt? Contempt, yeah,
When you're
yeah.
challenging it, that's being contemptuous, right? So they kick you out, then they call the name back, you're not there, and then they just adjudicate without you being there, and now you got the charge on you. That's them in control of the scenario.
Yeah, or even them in control of their jurisdiction.
Right.
That you shouldn't be in there anyways.
Right,
Because, yeah. Yeah. You have any?
A lot of water when they're leaving here.
Yeah.
They're gonna need a lot of water.
Yeah.
Take on luck.
Take on
What'd
a
you
lot.
ask?
Take on luck.
No, I was just asking if there's any questions or any closing comments. I don't know if you had any announcements, Omar. Other
The only
than
closing comment that I would say is, yet again, this is the theme, we can talk about this, we're coming into June, and we're looking to try and evolve what we see this as being kind of the embassy open house kind of forum, where we're having people come in to understand their nationalization process and all of the things that are there. But what we've realized, as we saw the church people coming down here, right, that we have, 501c3 corporations here that are all part of the whole kind of
system.
to kind of keep us melanated ones in some form of distraction, right? Just go and meet Jesus and he'll help you and whatever and all that kind of stuff. And then, but you can see them on one side. These are Moors that are looking for something better up there, right? Because it's not there in their day-to-day lives. So they have to come and find the Spirit. Now we know that Yehoshua or Jesus wasn't white. He was a Moor, and it was never about this, right? But they made this into dogma. So you come in here, you do your prayers, and then you give your
Tithes.
your tithes to really
Give you a ransom. Give you a
brothers
ransom.
up driving an $80,000 Jeep
Yeah.
and living somewhere nice. But the other side of the people are the ones we find who have been being violated on the streets and in their lives every day due to colonization, which are the ones you find in the courts, right? Those are the ones who have been pulled over for some stuff or up there in some baby mama drama and realizing that they're under a terrible tyranny that really shouldn't be there. And then they come towards this, right?
Mhm.
But really, those are only reactionary things. To me, we need to be trying to be creating something not under stress, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
right? What I'm saying to that, our nationality shouldn't only exist because we're fighting the European off in court.
Yeah.
or fighting off some ticket.
Yeah.
This should be about us.
Should exist if we're
This
creating
should be about us
businesses,
getting
yeah.
our farms back. This should be about us building corporations, right? Not fighting them off. And that's where we were talking about. We're looking to try and we've been trying to battle down the same colonizer guys because we've been noticing that the so-called indigenous should be being the United Nations Declaration for the Rights of Indigenous People has said that the governments should be looking to help get the people back onto the land and with finance and with land and with all this stuff. And we've gone to them and they've continued to just shut us down and deny us. So we now know that this is all a fraud. To sort of answer the charge to what are you doing about all the people that you're out there all over the world killing people over, the so-called human rights violations. We're back at home right now. You're violating all kinds of rights.
Mhm.
And no one's holding you to anything.
Yeah.
That's why the prophet said we gotta hold them to the Constitution.
Fair enough.
Keep saying that, hold them to it. Don't care what they think, what they believe, just hammer it on them.
But let me say this, you made a very beautiful point there. We have to hold them.
We are.
Yeah,
But who's we? We're not a we yet.
Yeah.
That's our issue. We need to be a we, and then we can hold them to it. So our thing is that we've been looking to, because we know that the attorneys and the lawyers are a bunch of their criminals, and we've looked at, but what we thought is that to fight, it's like this, to fight, to fight at the card table, you're gonna need a card shark.
Yeah.
Right? So we may have to hire a card shark. So what we're looking at doing is or what we're thinking about, maybe we need to buy some land. Or we're looking to start trying to make some different
moves,
than just sitting around here and talking about having to fight off some cops because we got pulled over yesterday. Or because me and my girl split up and Fro was coming after me, some crap, right? So, Cujo, I think, right, that we're looking to sort of start discussing getting some funding together.
Yeah.
So as I said, when we talked to one lawyer, and he said, because we were saying, listen, we have this case against Canadian government. He's like, well, no lawyer's going to work on, what was he saying? On the aspect of
conflict of interest.
No, not conflict of interest. For example, let's say you get injured. Supposing you can get lawyers that come and work for you pro bono on the aspect that
Once you
you
win,
win, you give them 30%. What he's saying is that no lawyer is going to work on that aspect against the Canadian government because obviously that's a juggernaut. So he's saying that let's say to have a lawyer do something like that, that'd be about $5,000 to $10,000. So we were thinking. So what we've been meditating on is trying to make some moves because until we can get our finance right, until we can get our things right, this battle is really still going to be, sort of just a niggling little battle because we still got to go back to the slave on Monday. Until we can start working for ourselves, most of our energies are being given to them. So we want to start building on some meetings as to if we are going to kind of try and come together to do something with some funding, what would be best to do? Maybe it's about getting some land and then starting a farm as an example or something, right? So anyways, or sitting down and talking about certain ideas. Someone was talking about, getting into stock trading and stuff like that. I don't know if any of you saw the Bitcoin in the
stuff dropping.
My friend was telling me he's majorly involved in that coin thing. He said people have been killing themselves over people that put their monies in. He's saying on YouTube, there's all these testimonials of people that maybe put in their $10,000 to $20,000 all their life savings, made $5 million, and then when the shit tanked, these people lost everything. It probably wouldn't be 20,000. It might be their $1 million that they have for their nest egg. They put in this, they had all $10 million. When the shit hit the fan, as I said, a lot of them, their lives were destroyed. And I already saw from the beginning. What is this that you're trading? It's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. And what I believe happened was when Bitcoin came in here, they already knew that Bitcoin was a fraud. You can't really get rid of Bitcoin because it's based on certain mathematical principles. But everything that came out of that, which was all the aspects of look at this digital coin, which is like GameStop, which is all about the fact that if we all believe in something, then it has a value.
Same thing they did with the fiat. Yes.
Right. Yeah. Same thing they did with the fiat. What they did with this digital market is they put the honey out. And everyone came running for the honey. And then what happened was, this is what I heard, some Blackwater or some major stock group came in and basically just destroyed.
Just crashed it.
Yeah. But what my friend was telling me, it was absolutely done with what you call, not insider trading, but absolute collusion amongst the banks and amongst the people just were making runs, certain specific runs, dumping stock, which causes people to speculate. And then once, it's like starting a fire. It's like lighting this match. Once this thing starts, it's out of control. And so that's what they did. And as I said, it cost people's lives. The stock market is all that kind of stuff, right? And it's only existing to keep the facade going. And that's what
The Bitcoin thing is crashed, it's so.
no, Bitcoin's not.
That's still
Bitcoin's
going
the
on,
one thing
but-
that hasn't, because Bitcoin is based on these algorithms that you can't kind of that have some value to them in a sense, because it's like representing a lottery number. Let's say it's a unique code, from what I've understood, that cannot be counterfeited. But the rest of these digital coins is all speculation. It's all saying, I like this juice, and then if 50 million was like this juice stops being a cent, it starts being $10 million, because everyone believes the juice is $10 million. The juice is still only a cent, but if all of us believe the juice is $10 million, and we're all going to pay $10 million, then the juice becomes $10 million. Then if everyone starts selling this, then really at the end of the day, you got the juice, which really was only worth a cent anyways. So it was all speculation. So that's what they've done, and it had no value to it. But it shows to me how volatile all of these things that we say are wealth are, and we need to start doing something for ourselves.
Looking at real wealth. Yeah.
See, like, look, you see the church right here. Look, they have it. Look, look, have you seen them now? They're all gathered up here. This is some weird.
All those federal tricks are like Aladdin when you went into that pyramid. Touch the lamp he's not supposed to touch.
Yeah.
And after like, why you touch that lamp? Where he's just there running, and then the whole triangle's closing it or enclaving on it, and you're just like, oh crap.
Messed up. Messed up. Any other announcements?
Oh, yeah, we have June 21st will be our summer solstice walk. In 3 weeks, I don't know where yet we're going to do it. We might think to try and keep it in the city somewhere, but we'll let you know.
20.
I don't know. Well,
20, whatever
we're
weekend
supposed
that
to figure out
is.
the date. And then we have our barbecue July 9th, which is what is it? SEES? What is it?
ETC.
What?
That's in Thorncliffe?
Yeah.
Thorncliffe. We have a yearly barbecue where it's vegan. And we just sort of give food back to our people, in a sense. That's July 9th. And then we're going to start our In the Park series, I guess sooner than later, right? That's kind of weather the way it is. So we'll start meeting at different parks. We'll have the classes outside, which will bring about a lot of the times we find interaction with the public, and also communicating and trying to get the word out. And then in August, we're hoping to go to New Brunswick. We have Cujo has some indigenous that are on a reserve, battling down their chief, and they sent us the peace pipe. We don't have it here; it's in the back. And we sort of felt that was a calling for us to maybe try and meet up with our indigenous brothers, who seem to be who the government is saying are the indigenous and who they seem to be giving funding to. But when we talk to them, we find out that funding is only going to the chiefs and not to the people. But ultimately, the prophet said that a beggar nation can never attain its highest level of spirituality. And I gotta believe that most of us are kind of in a quote unquote little bit of a beggar state on a certain level. And
Not necessarily. It's like, it's not even like, I look at it, it's not even like a beggar. It's like, you got my stuff,
Yeah.
It's mine, bro.
Yeah.
It's mine.
yeah, it doesn't matter. Of course, how are you gonna get that?
No, but I don't go with it as a beggar mentality. It's just mine.
You're a thief, that's all I see.
It's mine. I'm not begging you this shit, bro. It's mine.
Yeah,
They just
sorry,
stole the stuff.
But here's where I do see the other
I
aspect.
understand what you're saying.
Okay, so fair enough. So we'll leave it there. So beggar nation, but
But
also,
we need to go deeper to know, just like when we said we got to enforce the Constitution. I don't care if it's 10 people and a million of them out there. I don't care. I want to see them take their government and publicly destroy these 10 people. Let the world see. It ain't gonna happen. Moors are rising. It can't happen. It can't happen. You gotta hold them, bro. Let the public see we holding them and that stuff. No fear.
brother, I agree with you there, but I think the other side to that
You know, it's time to play.
we've got to bring our numbers up and we start from my
Whatever
perspective.
I hate numbers with, because I heard the prophet always say, I'm counting on you, my few faithful members, not no big number, few faithful members. I'm counting, not no big number you talk about.
So fair enough, so then back again, he's counting us to do certain things. Those certain things.
Few I need to get together on this.
Right, so the few of us are here, the next steps are to bring about certain changes to allow us to bring our people a greater attainment, for lack of a better word. So we've got to start making steps where, let's say, people
Teach
come
our people that fear is a word that is a crafted English word, crafted word. It's like an acronym. Fire, earth, air, and river. Without those four elements of life, you cannot live. And that's what fear really is.
You can't offer that. It's false evidence of fear and real.
Do you?
Fire.
And that's what they have over here. This
Fire.
what we call fear.
Islam. Islam, Morris.
Islam.
Let's get our close out. Five on the left, two on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth. Peace. Freedom. And justice. Allah is my protector. My guide. My salvation. By night. And by day. Through our holy prophet. Noble Ali. Islam. Straight. Or if you brothers need some reading materials, there's some stuff on that blue cart back there. You could. Oh, see, okay. Just prop 'em up there.
Oh, after these 7 minutes, like, I'm learning so much. I kind of want to say, I'm trying to traverse. Oh, it's you. I got you. It's like, yo, your mind can't move. That's the computer. We're kind of playing the kids. That's what you feel like. This is all right, but like training computer. This is going to be like this in 10 years from now if we don't continue to strive for something. Because the very nature of getting people into this is all right. They've got to be able to see. They've got to be able to see the results of activity that comes out of this. The activity that comes out of this is just being more and then having more nationalities and then having nothing but coming to meet on a Sunday. It kind of is going to get lost in what happens.
Peace, Morris.
NIGGPR, you do your shit right, you live in a mansion.
You didn't happen to bring a metaphysical dictionary with you, did you? Today?
There might be one downstairs.
Oh, yeah?
Shelf downstairs.
Living as kings and queens, in a sense, rather than slaves.
Oh, how are you?